Unbelievable. Yeah. Wow.
Well.
Yep. So anyway, let's use the segue that our black mothers are really on trial. I know this is going to hurt you, Bev.
Oh, yeah.
Our black women are really on trial today on Ron March show because they're guilty of raising their daughters and loving their sons. And as a result of that, the sons are no good. They're just a bunch of sissies and punks and what can I call them? Evil, angry, unruly young boys.
Now, are these the mothers without the fathers in the house or with the fathers in the house?
I would say yes, but that would be discriminatory on me to try to protect the man. But I've always said any man in the house when it comes to raising boys is good. It's almost a must. But I know women don't want to put up with a no-good bum laying around all the time. But my point is, a woman always loves her sons. It's tough love. And when you look at the condition of our society today, it's becoming very prevalent that Martin Luther King and Dr. Smock, if you recall, remember Dr. Smock?
Yeah, I remember.
He was supposed to be the baby doctor that knew every daggone thing. Well, when he marched with King back in the early 60s, the news media began to come out with corporal punishment was not the proper way to raise children. They had him on TV, all of his white cohorts, some of those Uncle Remus black psychiatrists that never get a chance to talk. They all want to get on TV. Like I saw a couple of them yesterday. Unbelievable, Beth. Talking about Peterson. How heinous his crime was to whoop that little boy 4 years old and put welts on him. Well, I want to confess right now, and I told my uncles and my aunts, if their mama, which was my granny, was living today, she'd be doing time. She'd be on the, no, if that rule was in place back in the 50s, Granny would be doing time in Sing Sing. Because Granny didn't give a damn who she hit, what she had in her hand. If you got out of order and got out of line, she'd knock the mess out of you. And I got beat a whole lot of times. And I used to try to fight her back, and she loved it. She just loved it. And she'd fight me with her fists, and she would hit anywhere. She didn't care. So we got a culture break here that was given to us by selling us down the drain through Martin Luther King, because there's a history that we kind of overlooked during the Civil Rights era. For example, if we go back to 1700, when that European came over and was given 10 square miles to set up a commercial enterprise in a foreign land called D.C. Y'all follow me on this. Because if anybody challenges me, I ain't going to take no prisoners today. So you better listen carefully. The Europeans, it was 6 European nations that were given through England 10 square miles and funded to come to this country, United States, where we were all the time. Come to the United States and set up an enterprise for them. Them meaning England. And at the time now, England was in New York. Now the international banksters was all over the world because they were stealing and setting up enterprises everywhere. And we have to throw in the doctrine of discovery. I hate to skip around, but y'all got to listen. The doctrine of discovery was signed by the Pope, which was a bull. They call it a bull, which means it was a document of power, that the Europeans, those 6 European nations, had the blessing of God, hear me clear, to kill, steal, loot, burn, rape any nation, any nationality of people that did not believe in Christianity. I don't give a damn who's listening and get upset about that. The bull is still in place. It's called the doctrine of discovery. Look it up yourself. Don't look at me. Act like I'm trying to start something. So these Europeans came to the United States, and they had a couple of problems. Their biggest problem was England, because England was charging them the credit that they were getting from England, Great Britain, if you will, during the time, and the taxes that they were paying on their goods. That's when they taught you about the Boston Tea Party and all the uprisings that went on. Crispus Attucks, the first black that was killed in the Revolutionary War. We never could put it together because we was thinking we was still in Africa swinging through the trees, eating bananas and talking to monkeys. You laughing at me, man?
I'm doing one of your numbers, Ron. I have to laugh to keep from crying.
I hear you. So anyway, when they got over here, they said we got to get rid of England. And then they said, well, we also need to figure out how we can use the document of discovery to enslave these blacks that live here. So they had a secret meeting. I keep talking about this. It was reported that George Washington summarized the raging debate on how to perpetrate slavery of the Moors, lawfully tagged black people, in 1774 at the First Continental Congress held in Philadelphia with this statement: if we agree, is what he told his Europeans, if we agree to have the fezzes, turbans off the Moors' heads and remove the sandals from their feet and enforce severe punishments, and to also swear a death oath between ourselves to religiously and faithfully not to allow anyone to teach the Moorish children who they really are, or who they really were, or who their forefathers were, and only allow the Moorish children to be taught that they are truly Negroes, black people, and colored people. 200 years from today, the Moorish people would not know their nationality nor the national name of their forefathers. Also, they would not know from which land or ancestors they were descendants from. It don't get any clearer than that. This quote came from the minutes of the First Continental Congress, a.k.a. Oddfellows Convention, where representatives of many of the European colonies, quote unquote, Fortune 500, Fortune 1300, 13, were in America, convened, met, and conspired in 1774, 2 years before the Declaration of Independence was declared into law, to strategically plan the perpetual enslavement of Asiatic people in America. This information is passed down to us from Moorish elders. There is no link for this particular quote, per se. In regards to the strategy that the Europeans used in stripping our forefathers of their nationality, divine creed, and the inherited birthplace is as follows. If the Moors were ever set free in the future, as we supposedly are now set free, they would remain subjugated and dominated by the European race that who had the sole authority in the classifying system via race, with race being erroneously distinguished as colors such as black race and white race. The Moors would unknowingly forfeit their rights and true citizenship. Under slavery and its classification system, the Asiatics of the Moor descent would not have any rights under the laws governing free national citizens. The Moors, illegally known as the slave marks of Negro, colored, and black, would rob themselves of citizenship because none of these names pertain to a true nation of people. Did you get that, Beth?
I got it.
That's enough to make you just want to go out and just commence stuff. Now, if that went on in 1774, and at that time, the Europeans, and I told y'all to look up proclamation line. I bet none of you did. But the proclamation line was in place in 1663, and is still in place today, that no European is allowed to cross the Alleghenies. Now, they set up what we call the pioneers. They set up the other names they use: frontiersmen, Quakers, pilgrims, all them old names that don't mean nothing, label type names, so that they wouldn't be known as Europeans. They don't want to be called Europeans because the true history is written about Europeans. So if the majority of the country, and I just read where the majority of the country in 1776 was black, there were hundreds of thousands and maybe millions of blacks here. Now, you can believe it or not, yeah, they brought slaves here, but it wasn't a slave trade where there was a market, because they had enough slaves here, or better yet, they had enough people that looked like slaves here, and all they had to do was kidnap them, bust them upside the head, and take them into the slave nations. As early as, let me get a date on this map. I got a map here that shows, here we go, 1861, slave and free states. Now, 1861 is very important because all black people were free prior to 1861. Now, if anybody want to know why, I can say it real quick.
Okay,
because you know why, right, Beth?
Why?
Okay. So here we looking at this. The majority of the country was territories, like Washington Territory, Dakota Territory, Nebraska, Utah, Nevada, Kansas. They had Indian Territory. They had New Mexican Territory. All of that was territory. Then they had the free states. Now, we talk about our ancestors. We had the East Coast up high, which turned out to be the Northwest Ordinance, where most of us come from. And that's where your most bloody wars were fought, Bev, because I'm going to do another tour at the Elmwood Cemetery and the history of some of those wars that were fought in history when Custer and all them punks tried to kill off all the blacks, stole Detroit. They had a fort called Fort Detroit. And the bloody battle went on in Monroe, Michigan, where Custer was born. That's a whole different story. But that's where the most bloodiest battles were. We're talking about Maine, New Hampshire, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa, Kansas, and Minnesota. Unbelievable. Now, all of those southern states were slave states. Missouri, Kentucky, Virginia, North and South Carolina, you know those states. Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Arkansas, Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. Now, I'm telling you all that because you need to visualize in your mind. How can you live as a free man? And you heard about him in school. They talk about free man. And across the street, they had your ancestors picking cotton and locked down the slaves. What prevented that European from walking across the street and busting you upside your head and dragging you over there and throwing you in his cotton field or whatever they had to work? It had to be terrorizing to even live near the Alleghenies where these Europeans were coming across, stealing slaves, and the Mason-Dixie line going across and all that kind of stuff. It's got to be horrifying. And we don't even, most of y'all ain't never heard of this before. I lived it. I'm 73 years old. I was born in Indiana. I was raised in Illinois. I probably could count the Europeans, if it wasn't for going to school, I could count the Europeans on my hands that I saw. They didn't come in our neighborhood. And now, in hindsight, they couldn't come in because Granny had the jurisdiction and they were not allowed to come in. If they wanted to pick up somebody, they would go to Granny and tell Granny what they did, and Granny would send for that person and take them over there and give it to the European. Because if you really read and study, you'll figure out how did Emmett Till get caught. His grandpa told him Becker was where he was.
Come on. No.
I swear to God. And then when they went in the house to find him, they couldn't find him, and Grandpa said he normally hides up under the bed. They went back in there and drug his butt out from under that bed and went out and killed him. Look it up. Don't look at me like I'm crazy. Granny ran everything. European wasn't allowed to come in and do that trash. So, if we're talking, and I'm coming after Martin Luther King, y'all, and I want to talk about Peterson, Hardy, I can't name them all them football players that's in trouble, beating their wives and beating their children. There is a cutoff that allowed the European to do what he has been doing with these prisons and these young boys ever since Martin Luther King signed the Civil Rights Act. Europeans didn't have no permission to come after us because we didn't belong to them. Now, let me just run some good stuff on you here. So, going back to the top. So now, we're going to talk quickly about the 13th Amendment. Now, they've confused us to tell us that there was a stolen 13th Amendment when they burnt down the first White House, which was in Philadelphia. Don't get confused. I don't even think it was called the White House. I think it was called the Carpenter Hall. But I haven't done any research on that, so I don't really care about a name. But the European fed us the information that the first 13th Amendment was burned up and they couldn't find it, so it was never ratified. So they came back in 1865 and ratified the 13th Amendment. But what they did, they gave you two sections. Every amendment has more than one section. I just saw them today. They don't tell you about all the sections. The 13th Amendment is one of the biggest because it's got 20 sections. 13th Amendment. All right? Now here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read it to you. And you can take it any way you want. The First Amendment, I ain't going to read them all. The first, I'm looking for the two that they gave us. And one of them was, there'll be no slavery. Y'all know what it was. They tried to feed you what they wanted you to know. There will be no slavery in the United States, and, there it is, number 6, involuntary servitude, except for crime, shall not be permanently established within the district set apart from the seat of government of the United States. And I want you to hear that. We're going to come back to that seat, S-E-A-T. You need to look that up. But the right of sojourn in such districts with persons held to service or labor for life should not be denied. Bottom line, if you don't have a court order to put you in jail, think about this, a court order to put you in jail, they could not hold you in involuntary servitude. Now, Ferguson had a secret. The Europeans, knowing they're in trouble in Ferguson, it's still a powder keg for most of y'all that don't know it. Especially after they caught those two Europeans who witnessed everything. The European City Council held a secret meeting in a black church. I can see them old Uncle Remus preachers working with them Europeans trying to get peace. Or better yet, trying to save the Europeans. Bottom line, the community found out about it, kicked the door down in the church, went in there, started raising hell. The church, the city council got up and said they want to make an offer, people, that if they'll stop rioting and looting and get back to normal, something like that. I wasn't there, but just something like that. That they would make the police department stop writing Terry stops. Now, how many of y'all know what a Terry stop is? You know what a Terry stop is, Betty?
No. Nope.
You need to look it up. It's a Supreme Court ruling that there will never be another Terry stop legal under law. A Terry stop was a man, his name was John Terry, in Ohio, that he was driving home. Police didn't like the way he looked, so they went over there, snatched him out of, did the usual. Slapped him out of the car, pistol whipped him, did all kind of stuff, and then went through the car and found that he had an open bottle of beer under the seat. Something stupid. So now it goes to court. They say, well, what was the purpose of you stopping him? They couldn't come up with nothing. But they wanted to say he had this open beer. Well, you didn't see the beer. So they ruled in the favor of this Mr. Terry. Put it that way. Now, they've been doing Terry stops in our community for the last 300 years. We didn't even know what it was. But the city council told the black folks that was angry down in Ferguson that if y'all act good and go home, we will stop the Terry stops. And they said, stick it where the sun don't shine. We don't give a damn about a Terry stop. We want the police department to leave, and you too. Them people are so mad down there they don't know what to do. But they're getting information where they're not getting hung up on some crap. They want the entire police department gone, all them Europeans. Because now they're registering to vote, and they say, we don't do nothing else, we're going to vote your booty out. Yes. So, let's get back to Martin Luther King. It was so hard to live in the United States all the way up to 1960. Y'all hear me? Go home and ask your mom and your daddy, or ask your grandma and grandpa. You could get stopped, pistol whipped, murdered, lost, raped, whatever that European wanted to do, he did, because the courts was convinced that all cops are pure. All cops are pure. So if a cop got in there and said, you did this, and your judge said, yes, he did. You don't think this cop would lie in this courtroom, do you? This good old cop, and I'm looking at his record, he got a memorial cross for helping an old lady across the street. He climbed the tree last week and got a cat that was stuck. This honest police officer, and you saying that he's lying in the court? Get out of here. Nobody believes that. And that's what happened. I'm telling you. Mm. It was frightening. Bev, you knew it. It was frightening. If you didn't stay in your right place, you had a problem. And you definitely did. If it wasn't working hours, you definitely did not want to leave and go to the suburbs or go through the suburbs. It's still that way today. That's why we're having so many problems. But once they get you out there, they can create a crime that you committed. And then they will scare you so much that you would sign. We didn't know about the contracts at the time. So we would sign a contract so we could get out and go home and admit to a lesser crime. A lot of your governors were elected governor from being a prosecutor because his record of prosecution was a damn near 95% because he plea bargained. This thing is out of control.
Yeah.
It's out of control. So, I'm still going down. I'm looking for number 12. And I done told you about the free states. Now, here we go with number 12. This is not Ron Marx. This is the European law on the books in the Constitution, the original Constitution, the organic Constitution of the United States, which we gave them. Section 12. The traffic in slaves with Africa is hereby forever prohibited on pain of death and the forfeiture of all the rights and property of persons engaged therein. Semicolon. Last words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 more words. Listen carefully. And the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. This was in 1865, y'all. What the hell is wrong with you? And y'all out there banging on the door, following Martin Luther King, following that daggum Jesse Jackson and all them folks. Because you want to be a part of the United States. And the Constitution said you can never be part of the United States. That ain't enough for you? Let's take another one. Let's take Dred Scott versus Sanford. In 1856, prior to the so-called, quote-unquote, ratification of the 13th Amendment, the second 13th Amendment, was a landmark decision by the United States Supreme Court. Now remember, before 1861, the only courts in the United States were thirds, Article 3 courts, which was the Supreme Court. They changed the name of Article 3. So if you think I'm lying, get your Constitution out and read Article 3. The only courts shall be Supreme Court. That's why all of your old cases all went to the Supreme Court, because there wasn't none of this trash, 36th District, Circuit Court, all that bull crap that they set up to make money. That's all. Just to make money. And make up their own rules as they go along. Okay. Dred Scott versus Sanford was a landmark decision by the United States Supreme Court in which the court held that African Americans were enslaved, enslaved or free, could not be American citizens. Good God. And therefore had no standing to sue in federal court. I should walk out of here. Do y'all hear me? This is law. This ain't some preacher praying on the corner with a midnight vigil. This ain't Jesse Jackson and a bunch of punks up there talking about we got rights. What kind of rights we have in the Constitution? It's a disgrace. It's an outrage.
So Section 12 is saying that we are not part of the corporation.
Correcto.
Okay.
No, let's say it better. You're right, but I'll have to give you a B. Here's your A answer.
Okay.
We're not a part of the original Constitution. We gave them the contract. The only thing in the contract that relates to us is Article 3 and Article 6. Article 3 says if they do anything wrong, we can take them to Article 3 court. And Article 6 says any agreement that was made prior to 1776, 1787, this so-called Constitution has to be adhered to, and it becomes the law of the land, the supreme law of the land. So we need to study treaties, agreements, and contracts that were in place prior to 1787. You see the difference in your answer and my answer, Beth?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a B, but that's okay?
All right.
Now, y'all got to understand this. I don't expect you to go out now and start raising hell, but at least your mindset should change. And stop trying to be something that you cannot, by law, be. Now, let's finish that up. He said the court held that African Americans, rather enslaved or free. Now remember, there was two blackies. And the free blackies was 10, 20, 30 times more than the enslaved blackies. And some of those free blackies were trying to break those other blackies out because the European hated free blacks because he couldn't tell the difference. So he said, to hell with it, bust them in the head and take them on over there. Or, worse than that, set up a government in a township or municipality, such as Ferguson. All of the people in there that hold those enforcement positions are Europeans. And now we can arrest them on some Terry stop and make them work it out. They know they got $10 in their pocket. We'll make the fine $50. So they got to work for 20 days in the cotton fields before they can get out. And if they don't work right, we'll add days on to them 10 days. Y'all got to look at this thing the way it is. And now the European is trying to squirm and get out of it because none of those blackies you've seen on TV in the last 3 weeks has mentioned nationality, they haven't mentioned slavery, and they have not mentioned granny. And every one of them over, let me give them an age, 30 years old. Now, I'll do 25. Any blackie on TV over 25, their parents had to be 50 or more. So grandma might be still living. Granny ruled by corporal punishment. You new people start talking about love and kissing that little burrhead boy. And then when he gets of age, can't figure out why he don't want to go out in the world. And when you force him out in the world, he want to run out there and find some girl that's going to be his mama.
Yeah.
When I heard, I got 4 boys. And when I heard any one of them talk back to their mama, I said, it's time for y'all to go. Get the hell out of here. You know everything. So now's the time for you to get the Samuel out of here and go out there and deal with it. You ain't staying in here. Not with that mouth. I wish you could see him. And I said, you could come home. Y'all listeners need to do this. You can come home at any time. If you're in trouble financially, lose your job, it don't matter. You can come back home to your daddy. But the first order of business is to tag on the refrigerator your day of departure. If that ain't up, get out. I want to see that date on the refrigerator. And when that date comes, you getting out of here. I'm going to put your clothes and $100 on the porch and change the locks. Y'all get out there and try it again. You ain't moving in here. Now, if you think I'm lying, boy.
I believe you.
And all of them love me. And I work with them all. I do everything I can for them. Anything I can. But they got to be able to go out there in the world And it don't do any good to hide them from racism, because when they get on their first job, they in trouble.
Yeah.
If they don't act the way the European wants them to act, they get fired. Woo! I'm telling you. But I ain't through with you. I ain't through with you. So, Dred Scott. Now, he's coming in 1857 before the dadgum not Dred Scott, but 13th Amendment. It says it's 1857. None of you people. It's right there. I'll give you the case. Dred Scott versus Sandford, Sandford, 60 U.S.393, parentheses, 1857. Put that in and see what you get. Was a landmark decision by the United States Supreme Court in which the court held that African Americans, they made that up. The original said Moors, but then, coming out of 1774, African Americans, whether enslaved or free, could not be American citizens and therefore had no standing to sue in federal court. And that the federal court had no power to regulate slavery in the federal districts acquired after the creation of the United States. Dred Scott, an enslaved African-American man who had been taken by his owners to free states and territories, attempted to sue for his freedom in a 7-2 decision written by Chief Justice Roger B. Taney. How could I ever forget that name? The court denied Scott's request. For only the second time in its history, the Supreme Court ruled an act of Congress to be unconstitutional. Now, y'all put that in your pipe and try to smoke it. And start looking at these blackies, these lost blackies that are football players, and now they're going to be spokespersons for the black community. And every one of them have been cradled in life. Either their mama cradled them before they left home, or the football coach went to the house, told mama, give me that little punk, and I'll take care of it. And I'll give you $5, $10 on the side. Help me, somebody. I'm telling you. This is crazy. And we living in it. Y'all, that's what I'm trying to tell you. We're living in it. And none of them blacks, I done seen them from football to coaches to psychiatrists. He was on there the other day among white folks. Talk about how heinous it was for Peterson to whoop that baby. I got a great-grandson. I love that boy with my heart. Anybody know me and seen that dude? That's my main man. I had him here for the summer. One night he said he wasn't going to bed. Every time we put him in bed, we go to bed, we roll over in the bed. He's standing there looking at it. I said, boy, did I tell you to get in bed? He stood there. I took him to bed 3 times. That last time, I took my house shoe with me. I like to whoop him with the house shoe because it makes a lot of noise. Mama taught me this one. It makes a lot of noise, and it stings. I come into wearing that booty out. I mean, that boy was kicking. I said, oh, you ain't had enough of this. I run this house. You don't tell me what to do. When I got through smoking this high, that boy went to sleep in 5 minutes. Next morning when I went to check on him, he's sitting up in bed talking about, hey, Grandpa, what's happening? My main man. We call him Chunk. But I'm just telling you, y'all can do what you want. I'm too old.
But how did the parents take you giving them a whooping?
They sent him to me because they couldn't do nothing with him. He stood in the middle of the floor and crossed his arms and literally tell him to go kiss it where the sun don't shine. You know, he can't talk. And I couldn't keep him because I said, if he can't talk or use the bathroom, let me know. I can't keep him. But as soon as he start talking and say, I got a pot, I may go get that cat. But I can't get him now. You're driving me crazy trying to keep up with him, changing them diapers and all that stuff.
Right.
But his parents sent him to me because they know who I am. But I did them the same way. I called his mama when she was little. She was up here one summer. She was trying to stick a paper clip into a light socket. And, Granny said, always catch them doing what they do, and they'll never forget it. When I saw she sitting down there trying to fold it to fit, if you see her now, she'll start laughing. I wore that booty out. She's scared of a paper clip today. And she never forgot it. I'm telling you. I got whooped the same way. I'm like Peterson. Now, I ain't never whooped a child when he started bleeding, so I don't know about that. But he said his daddy whooped him. Now, you're going to change that man's culture? And then you get on TV, you should hear all the people. Oh, it's a disgrace. And they're the ones that made us do it because we were trying to protect and love our sons because they would kill them. Same way they're doing today. Every one of them boys that got killed wolfed at them Europeans in Peckerwoods. When that cop went by that 18-year-old, told him to get his black so-and-so out of the street, that boy told him, you know where to go. That European slammed on them brakes. Here he comes. I wouldn't have been in the street. Or at least I'd have got out of the way when the car was coming. I was trained that way. But the mamas today, you've seen them. Oh, ain't he cute? No, that little punk ain't cute. If he with you, he got on clothes. He's only 2 years old. She ain't even got food in the refrigerator, and he got on about $100 worth of clothes. Unbelievable. It's just, hey, y'all doing it? I'm just letting you know. We're in a crisis now because that culture is crossing. And we're moving forward to Martin Luther King. So I want to talk about, we're going to take a break, Bev, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the Civil Rights Act, and then we'll bring in Martin Luther King.
Okay. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Welcome back to the Truth to Power Show and the Ron March Show. And my name is Beverly D., and you're listening to Ron March. And Ron March is talking about what did Martin Luther King give up for the Civil Rights Act. Ron.
Yes.
Before you get back into part 2, tell them about what's going on September the 20th.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. September the 20th, I'm having a lecture on why are we in debt at the Truth Bookstore here in Detroit, but actually it's in Southfield, right across the street from Detroit. And it's going to be at 4 o'clock, which is my Saturday live time. So it'll be on the internet. Go to Ron March Show. And when you Google Ron March Show, only 3 words. The first Ron March you see, tap it, it'll take you to my website. At the top of the website, it'll say Ron March Live. And at 4 o'clock, I will be live on my website. And we're expecting upwards of 100, maybe 150 people. And it's going to be quite a show. I'm looking forward to it because the information that I have, y'all know how I am. I'm going to try and set them on fire. And maybe we can get more people interested in trying to free themselves. So 4 o'clock, September the 20th at the Truth Bookstore, which is in the Northland Mall in Southfield.
Okay.
Right off of Greenfield. Yep.
All righty. Okay, so we're doing the part 2.
Yes.
You're telling us about Martin Luther King, what he gave up.
Okay. How's the chat room or how's the phone calls?
Well, we did have a caller. You can call 347-215-8041. That's 347-215-8041, and push the number 1 if you would like to ask Ron a question or you have a comment. Nobody has pushed 1 yet. They're listening in both places.
Okay. All right. Now, since I have proven to you beyond the shadow of a doubt, as of 1857 and 1865, you were not a citizen of United States of America because of the Constitution. We are not in the Constitution because we own the land. That Constitution was a contract that we gave them in order to be recognized as a country on a foreign land known as District of Columbia. The capital of their country is Washington, D.C. Y'all got to get that and live with that in order to understand that. Because freedom is only a mindset. And if you don't have the history and the understanding as to who, what, where, and how we're in this hocus-pocus trick bag, you'll never get free. This is why I talk the way I talk, and I'm glad that I do. I don't know any other way to talk. But I like to be blunt, right to the point. And I love to cuss when you don't get my message. But I don't do much of it. I try to hold that down. The wife say, you just cuss all the time. But I be trying to hold it back. But my point in using that language is only to emphasize that you're not getting it. And when I feel or look or talk to a person and I feel that it's not there, I go deeper. I try to get to them. So I'm not apologizing. I'm just saying if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. I'm bringing you truth. I don't want you to believe me. I want you to call me a lie. I want you to challenge me. And I'm going to tell you where to go. Not that kind of place, but I'm going to tell you where to go to find the answer. You read it and then make up your own mind. All right. Now, since we were not citizens in 1774, 1787, 1857, 1861, 1857, all of these can be proven by their history, not ours. His story tells that. They knew they were going to have a problem with us because they were afraid if we woke up and realized what they had done to us, we would go off on the deep end. So now we're talking way back, 1765. So once they made their mind up that they was going to steal the land and put that program of 1774 in place, no more Islam, only teach Christianity, no more fezzes, no more turbans, no more secret meetings, no more usage of the word Moors, nowhere. No more, what's that other one they did real big? Teach the children only that they're Negroes, colors, and blacks. They had to have a period to put that in place. They called it Reconstruction. 1865 to 1875. They went in hindsight, ladies and gentlemen, hindsight, and changed everything. Took all the Moorish names out. It wasn't that much to do because people couldn't read or write, and the Moors had their own language. So we didn't know about it. And didn't give a damn about it because we were living our own lives, minding our own business. And we didn't know they were coming. Some of the cowboy movies and How the West Was Won with James Arness, if you could get that series, they bring it out. The Indians knew, those Hopi Indians and some of those heavyweights medicine men. They knew that the European was coming and was going to come like blades of grass, so many of them. Unbelievable. I'm telling you. It's so clear to me, I almost feel I lived through it. I'm in my second life, or third, or fourth, something like that. So, they had to put this thing in place. Now, they got all the rules, regulations, laws, the Pope, the Queen. Now they're going to put the United States government in place. Now, this is very important. Because in order for them to do the dirt and devilment that they had to do, they had to first figure out how they could put us, hear me clear, into the Constitution. Not the original, but the de facto Constitution, known as democracy. So in 1771, a monk, a damn monk, he was an archbishop. His name was Derek McLeod. He was an archbishop, whatever that is, in the Catholic structure. He went to Delaware and filed for corporation papers and put in a irrevocable trust corporation, and he named that trust United States of America, Inc. That's where it came from. That's the invisible government. Look it up. Don't sit there and look at me like I'm out to lunch. You look it up. His name was Derek McLeod. There are three principles involved in a trust: the grantor, the trustee, and the beneficiaries. He was instructed by the powers to be, which would be the international banksters, to make himself the grantor because he filed for the paperwork. There were two trustees put in the paperwork: the seat of England, which was the Queen or the King. So we're talking about the hierarchy of England, which would be they got a name for it, the royal family. And then they put the Pope in. So the Pope, the Queen, and United States are the three entities of United States of America, Inc.
So they the trustees.
Now, they had one more.
They the trustees?
The trustees were two of them: the Queen of England and the Pope of the Catholic Church.
Okay.
So now they got that in place. They had to do one more thing, which was the most important. They had a country, a corporation, a country, which was D.C., a capital, which was Washington, D.C., but they did not, hear me clear, did not have subjects. There were no slaves. So guess what they did? They passed in 1868, they passed the 14th Amendment. I had that someplace. They passed the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment said that anyone that was born in U.S. of A., I can't give it to you by quotes, but y'all need to look it up and find out for yourself. They said anyone that they see fit, they, the corporation, if you were born here, which included us, because we was all born here. None of these black people here have paperwork. All Europeans have historical paperwork. Now, that ought to tell you something right there. No blackie has paperwork in the United States. Or let's call him, let's get a little clearer.
Wait a minute, yeah.
African American. Huh?
Okay, when you say have paperwork, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Naturalization papers,
okay.
Citizenship papers, all of that trash that you get when you come through Ellis Island under that daggum that Hudson. known as the Statue of Liberty.
Okay.
None of us, so-called African Americans, black, colored, spooks, Negroes, niggers, none of us have paperwork. None. All people of no color, Europeans, all of them have paperwork. Either their grandpa, their grandmammy, or whatever. They had to have paperwork to come in here. I did research show 15 years ago on that. It is very interesting to note that anyone from the 6 European nations, and I can't call them all fast enough right now, they don't need paperwork to come to America because their founding fathers were given paperwork when they gave them the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution contract of peace and friendship. But all other Europeans had to have paperwork. Unbelievable, Beverly. Unbelievable. So they had to create citizens. So they created this thing called 14th Amendment. Now, in the 14th Amendment, we can leap up to 1963. Now, there were several so-called civil rights acts, and I don't have the dates, but there were several civil rights acts or bills passed prior to 1964. However, in 1883, the Supreme Court ruled that all civil rights acts were unconstitutional. The Supreme Court did that. Because after 1861, and after they put their program in place and gave all these townships authority by the Constitution of the democracy, which they hadn't put in place yet, but it was coming, you had a right to do to black people anything you want to do to them, up to and including kidnapping them, just like I just told you, just described it. When you look at these movies, a good one to look at in the area I'm talking to was The Butler. How he walked away from a slave camp down in Mississippi somewhere and come up north and became a butler in the White House. That scares white people when they see that, because they couldn't catch that brother. You understand?
Right.
So, I think it was 3 or 4 civil rights acts that were passed. Because blacks, remember now, when you was in school, Beth, when I was in school, they showed us pictures of Reconstruction when black senators, you can do your history, black governors, black congressmen, all were elected into positions in Congress. But they made them look like a bunch of bums, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, and talking out the side of their neck. I recall them pictures quite well, to show us that we was just too lazy to run the country. We're back to our European psychology, Beth.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Do you remember seeing a picture like that?
Yeah, I remember seeing they had the cigars hanging out their mouths and
yep.
their hats on, yep.
Amos and Andy type Negro, talking all that old silly talk. Yeah, y'all's the boss and all that stuff. And then let's not forget the movie called Birth of a Nation of 1915. I got that at home. I may try to burn that and sell it. Birth of a Nation, when they actually put into the theaters how blacks were supposed to run, whites were supposed to run blackies out of cities and take them over themselves.
Well, that's what they did.
Say again?
That's what they did.
Yes, they did. And I told you, Bev, about the worst race riot in European history. And when I say race riot, that meant that the Europeans attacked black people. The worst one in European history was Wilmington, North Carolina. They didn't call that a race riot. They said the history has proven that was a coup d'etat. They literally took a troop of Peckerwoods downtown and ran every blackie in position, ran them out of town, and told them don't come back. 1884, 1885, back in them days. No, 1898 and 1898 and 1899. Look it up. Don't look at me like I'm just making up something. I ain't coming here to make up nothing. Now, we in such a position where lynching was legal. We are the only people on earth, even Al-Qaeda is not under pressure of the government institutionalizing chopping off heads. Think about that. Anyone that creates a heinous crime anywhere in the world against a race of people will go to jail. I don't care what country it is. United States has a history of setting up laws where it was legal to lynch black people. It was legal not to give black people rights to ride the bus, to use the bathroom, and all of that. These were governmental laws, ladies and gentlemen. This wasn't a Ku Klux Klan type thing. This wasn't something that somebody just came up with and said, we're going to beat you up if you don't do it. They had a law. They backed it up with a law. They even had laws during the Jim Crow and back in them days that you couldn't walk on the street at night unless you had, if it was two or more of you people, two or more. Y'all need to read them black codes. You had to have a lantern. And every time a whitey comes, you got to hold the lantern up so they can see your face. And all you young folks ain't never heard of this before. You just run around hugging and kissing them Europeans like you're in a new world. Help me, somebody. Now the chicken has come home to roost. They shooting you, young children. Now you got attitude. We've been telling you this all the time. You wouldn't listen. Oh, buddy. I'm telling you, it hurts to even talk about this. But it's got to be said. Because them corralled Negroes ain't going to say nothing. They're not allowed to say it. They'll lose their positions. They'll be ostracized by the white communities. They never should have took the job if they couldn't do it. That's why we have trouble when we elect black people, because we send people in there that are not qualified. Go ahead.
Now, in 1883, all civil rights acts were unconstitutional. So do that mean the 1963 Civil Rights Act was unconstitutional?
No. That's what I'm getting ready to read now. They voted this in. They voted in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Let me read it. In 11th of June, 1963, speech broadcast live on national television and radio, President John F. Kennedy unveiled plans to pursue a comprehensive civil rights bill in Congress, stating this nation, for all its hopes and all its boast, will not be fully free until its citizens are free. President Kennedy's radio TV address, this says 970, I don't know what that is. King congratulated Kennedy on his speech, calling it one of the most eloquent, profound, and unequivocal pleas for justice and the freedom of all men ever made by any president. He said that in June 12th, the day after. The earlier Civil Rights Acts, they had one in 1957. The first laws addressing the legal rights of African Americans passed by Congress since Reconstruction had established the Civil Rights Division of the of the Justice Department and the United States Civil Rights Commission to investigate claims of racial discrimination. Before the 1957 bill was passed, Congress had, however, removed a provision that would have empowered the Justice Department to enforce the Brown versus Board of Education decision. So they passed all these little civil rights packages and never give it any type of teeth to put somebody in jail if they violate the crime. A. Philip Randolph and other civil rights leaders continued to press the major political parties and President Dwight D. Eisenhower and John F. Kennedy to enact such legislation and to outlaw segregation. The civil rights legislation that Kennedy introduced to Congress on June 19, 1963, addressed these issues, and King advocated for its passage. Okay, we're still working with King and the Civil Rights Bill. In an article published after the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, all that slavery talk, jobs and freedom, when the Constitution, we thought, said that everybody was free. But they had to put a provision, hear me clear, y'all, because of what I told you, that you could never be a citizen of United States of America or United States itself because of the Constitution. They had to put a special provision in the de facto democracy government that was founded in 1871 to give black people the right to vote. And they had to come under the Civil Rights Act. That's why you never see white folks scream about civil rights. Because they don't have civil rights. They have constitutional rights. We have privileges and benefits under the Civil Rights Act to make us act right. Hello! Help me, somebody. All right.
Wait, Ron. Say that one more time. The Civil Rights Act of 1963.
Yes.
We have what rights?
We have civil rights. We do not have human rights. We don't have natural rights. We only have civil rights that have to be given to us through legislation. Mm-hmm. People of Europeans and other nationalities have natural rights because they have a nationality. Since we are figments of your imagination to be considered a Negro, colored, black, which is no such thing on earth, then we come under a property clause in the Constitution, and they had to create the 14th Amendment to put us into the fictitious government known as democracy. United States of America, Inc. Did I say it? Did you get it?
Yeah, I got it. So, but basically, we don't have any civil rights either because that's from that corporation, and that corporation basically owns their property.
Well, if you're looking at it, it's hard for me to agree with you because I know what you're saying, but you're not saying it right.
Okay.
I look at the family of a Martin. What's his name? Wally? Deshaun Martin, whatever it is. Whatever it is. The guy that got killed, a young boy. And Michael Brown.
Brown? Oh.
What is it? I can't think of his name. Anyway, his name is Martin. Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown and a couple more of those black young boys that got killed. There will be Civil Rights Act passed by Congress to give them monies. You can't bring the child back, and whoever killed them, ain't going to jail because they're Europeans. So what they'll do is give them money through the Civil Rights Act. So you do have civil rights, but it's a privilege. They can take it away from you, not give it to you, or give you $80 trillion if they want to. You see the difference in our answers?
Yeah. Now the corporations, they can't deal with human rights and national rights.
Well, the corporations. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right, corporations can't deal with any rights because they're just a figment of your imagination. They don't exist, but they can pay out money. That's why they try to say all corporations are alive or human or whatever they call them, because you can sue a corporation. That was done through the Clearfield Doctrine. That was passed back in I'd be guessing, but 18-something. They call it the Clearfield Doctrine. And you can sue a corporation for money. So, yes, you can sue them and get your civil rights. You can sue them through civil rights. But when you have a police officer murder or kill a blackie, only way you can get him is through civil rights. Things called death, a wrongful death. There's a wrongful death clause in the Civil Rights Act. I read some Civil Rights Act once. I don't know if I did it in class but on the air. But you can go to the section. It's USC Title 18, I believe. It's a civil rights section. There are a lot of laws in that area. And they have penalties up to death for doing certain things. Kidnap, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't really give it to you. But you'll never get that police officer try him for murder or anything. But now I'll take it back. I still don't think he'll be tried for murder, but I'll take it back because of those Europeans saying they saw him do what he did. But those two civil rights guys, you know what I'm talking about, right, Bill?
Right.
Two white boys that saw it all. Their lives right now is probably worth 15, 20 cents. Because when they go back to the job, they probably get fired. Mm-hmm. When they go back to their community, their house may be burnt down. They got a major problem. Because they wasn't coming forward. They wasn't good citizens. They was only caught because that black family took a picture of them and said, these whiteys saw the whole thing. And when the FBI looked at it, they said, wow. They went to the truck, the name on the truck, looked it up, went to the company, asked who was driving this truck on so-and-so day and so-and-so time. They said, that old Fred and John right there. They said, y'all come with me.
Okay, I am back. We have lost our co-host, Ron March, and so we're going to continue this next Wednesday at 6 p.m. So he will start back the show then with where he left off today. So we are going to end this today, and thank you so much for listening, and please join us again next Wednesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Peace and much, much love.